Welcome to the Profitable Nutritionist Podcast, where your host and fellow nutritional therapy practitioner, Andrea Nordling, teaches you how to grow a sustainable, impactful, and consistently profitable health and wellness practice by following her proven formula.
I am so excited for our recording today because anytime I get to spend time talking with you, my dear friend Olivia Vizachero, the man, the myth, the legend, I know it's going to be a good time. Who knows what we're even going to uncover today, but I think it's going to have something to do with LinkedIn and maybe something to do with coffee chats. But I don't know what else. The sky's the limit. Yeah, it's going to be so good. Okay, so for everyone here, for everyone ever listening, you need to know that Olivia's mind works in mysterious ways to me. You call it a very flowcharty mind. I love when you say this too. By the way, like my brain's very flowcharty. And I love that because mine isn't. Mine is like looking at the top of a Candyland board and I'm like looking at the whole board from the top, but not flowcharty at all. So I love when you say that. So I always am like, oh, I wonder how she's going to think about this in a flowcharty way because it's so different.
That is amazing. I love how your brain works because it is so different than mine. And that's such a great analogy for how your brain works. I can totally see that. And I think you're strategic in ways that like I'm not, because you're looking at it from like the bird's eye view up above. And Candyland was my favorite board game. So I love that what you just picked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
That's how I always think about it. I'm like, I see the whole game here. I see we need to get to the palace where the princess is. We need to get there. We can't be getting stopped in the swamp, in the dirty swamp, the chocolate swamp. We can't be getting stopped there.
I know. This is why I have to be friends with you because I need more of your perspective in my life. I'm like, this is why your business is just doing things that like, I mean, I've got an amazing business, but I'm like, I need to be more Candyland strategy up ahead. But the flowchart.
This is why we have so much fun.
I know.
We have so much fun talking about all of the strategy and all the things. So all that to say, I love we both have a lot to learn from each other because I love how you teach things in such a methodical way. And you're like, it's this to this to this. And if this, then this. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I love that. I know this because Olivia came in and taught a consult intensive on how to do a high converting consult. And she did this in my mastermind group. And then the recordings are now in the Profitable Nutritionist program and in the mastermind. So for my students, you know, Olivia already. Olivia, you don't know this, but people rave about you. Like in our community all the time, people are like, you guys, I just went through the consult intensive. It's over 6 hours long, by the way. It's very meaty. We did I don't think I told you this. We did a companion PDF with like all of your slides and all of the questions to ask and all of the if-then statements that Olivia presents in the consult. Like if someone says this, then do this. If they say this, do that. So we did this really beefy PDF that goes with it. So people find the bonus course. They go through it and then they're like constantly like, you guys, do you know about this course? It's so good. I just saw someone's post like literally just this morning. She's like, I have been terrified of consults forever. And now I want to do as many as possible. Like, I just want to collect all of the consults that I can. I'm so excited after going through Olivia's course. So all that to say, once again, Olivia's got the goods on the strategy. Don't let her tell you any different. So let's talk about LinkedIn. Let's talk about your coffee chats strategy and all things LinkedIn. Actually, you probably have secret LinkedIn things I don't even know about, but I do know about coffee chats because in our lengthy strategy chats about our businesses, this has come up and I was like, oh, I'm going to circle back with her and we're going to do a podcast on that.
Yes.
And today's the day.
All right. So can I just start from the top?
Go.
All right. So when I teach my clients to do like organic marketing, I really walk them through 5 phases. And I think all of the 5 phases really inform your strategy for LinkedIn. So the first phase is you have to know your offer. And that is so important, like who you help, how you help them, what you help them do, what that looks like, because it's going to inform who you're contacting and connecting with on LinkedIn for coffee chats, for just building your audience, getting more eyeballs on your content, all of that stuff. So we've got to know exactly what you're doing. So once you know your offer, you've got to meet people, tell them what you do, add value ahead of time, and to make offers to help them, right? So once you know your offer, I always start with meeting people. And I'm really obsessed with LinkedIn for this reason. I started my business mainly on LinkedIn in 2020, and Instagram was kind of an afterthought for me. LinkedIn has always been my bread and butter. The majority of the money I've made in my business has come from LinkedIn. It's been a very profitable platform for me. And I realized like some of it I learned just by happenstance, kind of fumbling my way through it. And then some of it, like I got intentional about it and I tried to tweak things and play with it. And I came up with my own strategy that I now teach people. But if people are familiar with pods on LinkedIn, LinkedIn engagement pods are like a big thing that people talk about. And it's where you create like a group of people in a group chat on LinkedIn, and you all are on the honor system. You all agree to support one another's content. And I got invited to join one of those back in March 2020, I think, when I was just getting my business off the ground. And people have different opinions on whether or not like you're cheating the system, whether you're like being heavy-handed or like putting your thumb on the scale. Whatever your opinion is, regardless, what I've learned from doing that exercise and being part of that group is that engagement needs to be reciprocal. So that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but I just wanted to give like a background of my intro into LinkedIn. So engagement is huge on LinkedIn, and that's got to be part of your strategy for meeting people and telling them what you do and adding value. But first, when it comes to meeting people, when we know who it is we're working with and you know your offer, I break meeting people down into two different categories. So we start with direct clients, and then the second category is referral partners. So the reason I love LinkedIn is because you can literally search for people by their job title, which is incredible because it's an amazing way to find these ideal people, right? Like so good. Different from any other platform. Like finding a lawyer on Instagram is like, her handle is like Susie Pants 42. And that is hard to figure out whether she's a lawyer. You have to go, I coach lawyers, so that's why I'm using this as an example, but you have to go into her bio and it's like a cat, her kids, you know, stuff
It
like
makes
that.
me die. It
Wine
makes me die. This is
lover,
when Olivia's like, when are you coming back to Instagram? And I'm like, no more Susie Pants.
No, Susie Pants 42. And like, maybe you get lucky and she has scales of justice, maybe. And you're like, oh, she's a lawyer. Amazing. So keeping it real over here, you guys. Anyways, so you've got to break it down into these two different groups, direct clients and referral partners. So for direct clients, think about the exact person who would hire you. Now, for me, because of my niche and my focus on attorneys, it's attorneys. So I search for attorneys. There's 4 ways to meet people. Okay. So you want to get an idea of the exact people you're meeting. If you don't work with attorneys and you work with, I don't know, women with health issues, right? So like a lot of your people would work with just normal people. They don't have to be a particular occupation in order for them to hire them. So you just have to pick. So make a list. I like to suggest make a list of 10 different options, because the problem is you can't search in LinkedIn woman with like IBS.
You certainly can't. You don't want, if you can find that person on LinkedIn, you don't want that person as a client. So don't do that.
It's so funny that you say that. I got a connection request today from a woman who had a coffee chat. So funny. This is so meta right now. Had a virtual coffee with one of my former clients. My client raved about me. So she reached out and connected to me and then sent me a direct message, which we'll talk about that. Don't do that. But sent a message introducing herself to me, and I checked out her profile. I accepted her. I'm not like stingy with the accepting friend requests or connection requests, but I looked at her profile, and in her tagline, which we'll also talk about, it said like fart joke queen of LinkedIn. And I can't even use the F word without like cringing inside.
No, it just got so sweaty. Totally.
I'm so uncomfortable right now that I just like said it out loud, but I had to give like the direct quote.
You had to.
So bad though. And I was just like, oh, I never want to talk to you. I was just like, you're not my people. You're not my people. So to Andrea's point, if you can search woman with IBS, like we don't want that, right? Or Epstein-Barr or whatever. So you can't search for people like that. But that doesn't mean don't search for people. it just means you have to figure out the intentional way to search for people that would be your ideal client. Okay. So I have a client of mine who's a grief coach, right? So it's just like people with grief. But in order to connect with people, now I suggest you connect with people who have money and can afford to pay you, if we're being real brass tacks about this. Okay. So
sounds like a great strategy. Yeah.
So I search for people. I think about what are job titles where people would have money to pay me. Now, you might work with, if someone isn't a nutritionist and they want to work with a different type of person. If you are a business coach, work with entrepreneurs. So thinking about the job titles they would have: owner, founder, CEO, right? Things like that. Co-founder, you have to search for that. So the 4 ways to meet people. Number 1, you could just type in the job title in the search bar on the top of LinkedIn. Okay. And then you click on people, and a whole list of people, thousands and thousands and thousands, or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands based on what you search, will show up, or even more than that. And you just connect with people. You just send a connection request. You get 100 a week. They are not like rollover minutes from your cell phone plan from the 1990s or early 2000s.
No, they are not.
Do not get more of them next month if you don't use these this month or this week. So you get 100 a week. Do not squander them. You should max that out and have LinkedIn yell at you. They'll eventually cut you off, and you want to hit that max every single week. If you don't, because you've got some mindset bullshit going on, we've got to clean that up. So the 2 things that I see my clients struggle with when I give them this guidance, they're like, 100? I could never. And I'm like, I think you could, because it takes me about 5 minutes.
It's real easy.
So like, I definitely think you could. And they're like, there's no way. I'm like, how many do you think you can do? And they're like, 10. I'm like, that's the wrong answer. Okay. That's just false. So
it feels so good. Connect.
It does. Oh my God. I like get high on it. It's so much fun.
It makes like a little ding sound that's very, it's great.
So if you've got drama around this, it's either number 1, you are being a perfectionist about it and you're thinking that like you have to connect with the perfect, most ideal client that ever exists. So you keep going into people's profiles and researching, and then it takes you an hour to connect with 5 people because you're wasting all of this time. You should not be looking at anyone's profile. It should say enough from just their job description that you want to connect with them. And then for the other thing that people do is they get in their head about sending an unsolicited connection request. Now, I recommend not sending a message along with a connection request unless you're paying for premium and you're using InMail. People won't see your message until after they accept anyways. And you're probably just clogging up someone's inbox. Most of the people who are really experts on LinkedIn and spend a ton of time there, we don't love getting those messages. My only goal is to send a connection request so that person's eyeballs are going to be on my content. My content's going to pop up in their feed. And the reason that this is so effective on LinkedIn specifically is because LinkedIn is a reciprocal connection. And that is not true for a lot of social media platforms. So on Instagram, if I follow you, you automatically don't follow me back. You have to proactively of your own volition, go follow me too for my content to show up in your feed. So with LinkedIn, the beauty of it is that there's reciprocal connection. So we just need them to connect with you, and then your content will show up in their feed. So first way we do this is we type in the search bar. Second way we do this, we go to think of a company where your people might work. So
yeah, and I mean, this could be local companies to you would be a great place to start. Like, let's start in your own backyard. And then you probably know people that you're connected with.
Yes. So this is another great thing to think about. I always connect with people who I'm second degree connections with. And the more people we have in common, the better. So I have a very big audience on LinkedIn now. So I normally have a lot of shared connections with people, especially because I used to be a lawyer and I work with lawyers. So when I'm connecting with lawyers, we normally know a lot of people at different firms. But I like to, you'll notice when you do this, maybe the average for you is that you have 5 people in common. Amazing. start there. Like send those connection requests first. Maybe you only have 2 people in common and then the rest of the people you just don't know because you're new to doing LinkedIn. Then send it to the ones where you have any shared connection and you'll have a better success rate with this. People are like, oh, they must know me somehow. But a great example of that, I love the suggestion to start with local businesses because you'll know people there. You'll know people who know people. And they'll see that you're from their same area. So it'll feel warmer and make more sense to connect. Also, if you have, a part of your business or an aspect of your business where you do work with people more from your general like jurisdiction or demographic, right? Like it just makes sense. I have a client who works in Jacksonville and she could work with people from all over, but she kind of prefers to work with people in Jacksonville. I'm like, great. There's a ton of business owners in Jacksonville. I think we Googled it or not Googled it. We searched on LinkedIn, like for owner or CEO, founder, and then filtered by people and then filtered by Jacksonville. And it was, I don't know, like a couple tens of thousands of people. And
just
it's
a
like,
few,
just
a couple.
Yeah. And it's like, that's all the connection requests you can send for like the next 2 years. Or the next 4 years. So just do that. And this is what I mean by like, you can have a list of 10. You don't need a list of 10. You can have a list of 3 different job titles or 3 different businesses. Like for me, I use law firms because all of those people there, most of the people there are attorneys and they make enough money. So even if you weren't working with attorneys, you can also do this too. Like attorneys are a great demographic. They have lots of problems and money to pay you.
For sure. I would need to just give everyone a reminder. I did a part 1 on this episode on like optimizing your own LinkedIn page and getting your own LinkedIn shit together so it looks good so that you feel comfortable connecting with people that you know personally. And so it makes sense when somebody goes and creeps you, then they're going to end up on your website and they're going to know what you do. Because if your clients, I mean, I would be curious on your stance on this, Olivia, but I know for my people, a lot of the time, like all of the time, no one in your life knows what you actually do. If you're a coach of some sort, that is like such a vague anything. We think people understand. They don't. They have no idea what you do.
No one
and they're
knows what I
probably
do.
kind of curious, but then it kind of goes on to a point where people in your life probably won't ask you like, well, what is it you actually do? I actually don't even know because it gets like past the point where it feels comfortable even getting clarification. So they'll just nod their head and pretend they know, and they actually have no idea what you do. So your LinkedIn profile, it's a great place to introduce them to what you actually do and the kind of person you actually help so that they can send those referrals your way.
That's so good. I just ran into my uncle and he says this is like it's a compliment every time he sees me. I, of course, don't take it that way because it's really not. But he's like, people really pay you. They really pay you. Like people hire you.
He's just waiting for the day where you show up and you're like, nah, I'm done with that. Didn't work.
Right? He is. For sure. I'm like, they really do all the time. He's like, I just can't believe people pay you. That's amazing. And I do think he thinks it's amazing, but I'm like, it's such a terrible way to tell me.
It is.
So I agree, whether it's your uncle or your friend from high school or your former colleague at the job you left, like they're curious about what you do and they probably won't ask you. So give them a way to find out for themselves. And then the way I describe this is they can be out in the world like your little minions telling other people what you do and referring business to you. And that's amazing, right? You're the queen of referrals. So like, I know you know all about that to begin with.
It's the best. It's just the best. And LinkedIn is so set up for referrals. I mean, it literally tells you like what degree connection you are from the person, like how many referrals away are you from this person? It tells you. It's begging for it. It's just so good.
Totally agree. So the second way is you search the business. I search law firms. We in the practice of law have what we call AmLaw 200, which are the top 200 firms in the world. So, or AmLaw 100, you can just like run that list and only search those firms. You could do that. I could pick the same firm for a year and just max out all of their attorneys. Like that would be another way to do this. But if you want to pick a specific industry and just focus on that, it's like, tech or women-owned beauty companies or whatever. It's like just pick one or pick 10 businesses and go back there over and over and over again and just make it easy. My goal for people is always to spend the least amount of time deciding what to do and the most amount of time doing it. So
amen to that. Yes.
pick the 10 and don't reconsider it, right?
No.
Okay. So third way we meet people is we go to one of your connections, one of your first degree connections that you're connected with already, and you go to their profile. So I would go to Andrea's profile, and not everyone has this set up this way. So you're going to have to maybe do a couple trial and error connection click tests to see this, but you're going to go to their main profile and you're going to see their pretty little picture. It's a circle with their head in it, and then their tagline, whatever that is. And Andrea has to be dying with how much I'm talking with my hands on an audio recording right now.
So good.
I've been doing it the whole time. So for those of you who are missing out on that, I'm so sorry. I'm Italian. It's lovely. Anyway, so you've got their pretty little picture, the tagline, and then there's this little blue hyperlink. And typically for people, because most people on LinkedIn probably have over 500 connections, if they've been there for a minute, it will say 500 plus connections in blue font, and it will be clickable. Click it. Now, I like to go to someone who I'm connected with, who's a first degree connection, who's already my ideal client. Because
I'm dying. I'm going to listen to this episode myself and go do all of this. Give it to me. It's great.
So your ideal clients know your ideal clients. They sure do.
They hang around them.
I know.
It's so true.
It's amazing. So you go into their connections, and then anyone in their connections list that is they're obviously a second degree connection because you're in the person's profile who's the first degree connection. So you just go down and connect to anyone who looks like your ideal client. So that's the third way. Fourth way, and I love this way. This one, I think the others are like easier. They require like a little less searching, but this one is really, really good, especially if you're thinking about how all of this dovetails into more engagement on LinkedIn. Okay. So go through your feed and find a popular post from someone who like looks like an ideal client. All right.
Okay.
So for me, that would be like, I'd find a lawyer's post that did really, really well. And it's going to have, a couple hundred likes, maybe more than that. If it went like kind of LinkedIn viral, maybe it's in the thousands or more than that for likes or comments. But I go through and I connect with everyone who liked or commented on it.
Because they're active on the platform.
Correct. So with the other three strategies, even though I like them and they're very fast, the way you have to send connection requests to the people, the fourth way, you actually have to go into their profile and click connect, which is why it's more cumbersome. So I don't start with that.
You gotta want it.
Yeah.
But that they're on there liking things and in the feed, that's juicy.
Yes. So they're commenters, they're not lurkers, they like things, they, engage with people's content, they're active. So they're checking their connection requests, they're more likely to accept. They probably also want to build their audience on the platform because they're using it. So I just think there's a lot of gold there. If you are willing to spend time there, it's definitely worth it. So those are the 4 ways. Now, you want to be thinking about the ideal clients. I always start there. Like if I'm sending connection requests, it's going to be to my ideal clients for sure, because I want their eyeballs on my content. But then you also want to be thinking about who is a good referral partner, because the questions that I have people answer when they work with me for meet people, flowchart brain, it's like flowchart/outline. So it's Roman numeral 1, meet people. Actually, it's Roman numeral 2 because the first one's know your offer, but Roman numeral number 2, meet people. And then it's like A, direct clients, B, referral partners. And under A, you've got in-person and virtual. And under referral partners, you've got in-person and virtual. And obviously for the purposes of this conversation, we're talking about virtual networking. But for each one of those subsections, so it's like 1 and 2 under direct clients, virtual and in-person, you want to be asking yourself, who am I meeting? Where am I meeting them? How am I meeting them? Right? So for direct clients, you're just sending a connection request and then leave those people alone. If Andrea teaches something different, I'll let her teach you something different. But
that sounds great.
For me, I'm like, leave them alone. Let them come to your content, see it with their eyeballs, get excited about it, lurk, and then click the link when you make an offer, whether it's like for your consult page or to your website or to your program or to whatever, like let them do that.
I will say they do that. And I have told you this in the last month. So spoiler, if anyone hasn't listened to the part one of it, I mean, I'm sure many people haven't listened to part one and would just be tuning into this. I am newly back to LinkedIn. So I was on LinkedIn 100 years ago. And in 2021, early 2021, in a fit of self-righteous rage, I deactivated LinkedIn and all of my social
Never
media.
take action from righteousness ever. It's such a good rule of thumb. Don't do it.
Ever. But I did. And I love my reasons for it. But now I'm back on LinkedIn because I love my reasons for that too, for all of the reasons that we're talking about. So I'm back on like, okay, now I'm going to do it really strategically this time. Very excited. I have a team helping me. It's not me doing all of this stuff anymore. And so bringing everyone on this journey, like this is just so fun. I'm going to listen to all of this and do all of this myself. And I had a point and I can't remember what it was. Doesn't matter.
But it was about DMing people, I think, clicking links at the bottom, that they actually do that.
Oh, yes. That was my point. Okay. Yeah. So I'm newly back in there and I have been telling Olivia this. Thank you for bringing me back to that. I'm like, really, the quality of leads coming to my website are substantially more interested, more engaged, and taking more action. Like it's remarkable. And the only thing that changed is being on LinkedIn. And I think it's traffic that is just following the breadcrumbs and coming to the website organically from LinkedIn. It's the only thing I can even chalk it up to.
Yes.
It's amazing.
That's how I made like all of my money.
All of the money.
Give them the links. They're resourceful people. They will click the link and then they can figure it out from there. It works.
It's amazing.
Yeah. People are there. They buy. They're serious. They're kind of no nonsense. They're sick of their problems.
For lack of a better word, they're professional. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. So when I'm thinking, that's my strategy for direct clients. I'm going to identify them. I'm going to connect with them. I'm going to leave them alone. I'm going to let them see my stuff. And then I'll tell them what I do through my social media posts. I can tell them what I do through the tagline. I always want to make sure people's tagline, and you already talked about like optimizing your profile on part one, but you got to make sure that people know what you actually do, who you help, what you help them accomplish. I see it with lawyers all the time.
Yeah, LinkedIn is not your resume. It could read like it's your resume. Nobody's going to hire you that way. They don't really care about you. They want to know that you care about them and that you can help them. So it's like really their resume.
Exactly. So like the perfect example of this, lawyers do this terribly. And like, I love them, but they have to change. I just did a post on this where it's like low hanging fruit for business development. People will put like associate attorney at name of law firm, PLLC, or, partner at name of law firm, LP. Like, I mean, that's how law firms are titled. So it'll be like that. And it's like, okay, what do you even do? Who do you help? Cool. Like, I don't care what firm you work at.
If I'm in jail, do I call you? If I need a patent, do I call you? What do I do? I'm not sure.
Exactly. Right. And even within like the trademark space or the patent space, there's so many different nuances. Like, do you do patent prosecution? Do you do patent litigation? Like, it just depends. So being really clear as you're engaging with people, because your tagline, the reason it's so important, people see it when you're commenting on other people's stuff. So that's something that you want to be doing to engage with people, but that's really, really important real estate. So that's what you're going to be doing for direct clients. For referral partners, you want to, again, make a list. Who does it make sense for me to connect with and talk to? Who would refer me business? And what I think is so important, you want to be thinking about, where is it a reciprocal value add? Because a lot of my clients, they're like, well, I want to do virtual coffees with, I'm just going to use a lawyer example. I want to do virtual coffees with an in-house attorney, a general counsel of a company. And they're in private practice. So the general counsel would hire them. So the general counsel is an ideal client, not a referral partner. And I'm like, no, you're not doing virtual coffees with those people. They know you want to sell them shit. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be repulsed. That is not a mutual value add. There is no value. The value is they give you their time and you pitch them. That's not what we want to do here. So instead, you've got to be thinking about the people who also serve your people.
Yeah. So for holistic nutritionists and health coaches, I'm always thinking about personal trainers and gym owners that are so sick of talking about nutrition and they're not very good at it anyway. And they're very confused about what to do. So that's where my mind goes. Could be chiropractors, could be naturopaths. There's like lots of directions you can go there.
Yes. So thinking about who those people are, right? Even, I do some virtual coffees with personal stylists. because women who work in the practice of law are sick of wearing Ann Taylor suits and like only wearing Ann Taylor suits. And I'm not knocking Ann Taylor. I've been known to wear a little AT in my day, but you know, those people, like, it wouldn't be the first thing that I think of, but they also work with attorneys. So I'll reach out to a stylist and we'll do a virtual coffee, a connection call. So you want to be thinking of who those people are. Now, I think the best way to go about this is to find them, engage with their content for a little while. So like it and leave a comment on it. Do that a couple times. A really good strategy to do this consistently with people. There's a feature on someone's LinkedIn profile. You can ring their bell. And if you ring their bell, you always get notified every time they post. So then in your little notification.
Oh, so it doesn't happen on their end. Like they don't actually get a notification that you ring them. Remember 100 years ago on Facebook when you could poke someone? This is what I was thinking.
So gross. Ew, I remember the poke. Yes.
Someone finally realized this is not great verbiage. Could we remove the poke? Okay, so the ring the bell is not the LinkedIn equivalent of poking. Just making sure.
All I can think of right now, oh my God. Have you ever seen the show Lonesome Dove?
Absolutely.
He always refers to sex as like a quick poke
as
or something like that. Yeah. Oh my God.
For sure.
Amazing.
For sure.
For those who haven't seen Lonesome Dove, fire show.
So good. It's so good. Read the book. It's about a mile thick. It's worth every minute. It's so good.
Amazing. So you can ring their bell and then it will show up in your notifications every time they post. So you could just go to your notifications and be like, oh, I wanted to comment on her content. So I could ring Andrea's bell and then every time Andrea posts, it would show up for me. And I would be like, oh, amazing, easy peasy. I can just go leave my comment. And after you do that a couple times, just because I think it makes it a little less creepy, a little warmer, you've created a little bit of a bond and you already have a relationship going. Now you can ask for like your first date. And I will message someone at that point and simply say, hey, love what you're doing. I think we serve the same audience. I think we help the same people. I'd love to learn more about your business. I'd love for you to learn more about mine. Would you be up for a virtual coffee? Would you be up for a connection call? And I just send them the link to my Calendly, which I already have set up with my calendar availability. And I don't take offense if they don't get back to me. Most people do. If they say, I've never had someone say to me that they don't have time. I've had to say that to a couple people, just depending on like whether I'm launching or getting ready for a live event or whatever. I'm like, hey, now it doesn't work. But if you book something in December, I'm free then. Like I can do that. But it's really just a numbers game. So don't worry about the rejection side of it. Just trust that some people are going to be more than happy to connect with you because just like you want to talk about your business, they want to talk about theirs. So this is why the mutual value exchange is so, so important. But you can pick 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. I am chatty, so I pick an hour. And if you want to cut it short because it's awkward, you can always cut it short because it's awkward. But you go on the call and it's basically like a first date, but for friends who own businesses. And it's like you make small talk for a hot second and then someone's like, hey, how'd you get into what you do? Tell me more about what you do. And then you kind of give your life story, the War and Peace version or the shorter version, the Cliff Notes version, up to you depending on how long the call is. And then you go through your spiel and then they go through theirs. And maybe you talk about like restaurants in Rome for a little while because that came up during your conversation. And then at the end, I've had some people be like, how can I help support you? And they like make a really bold ask. And I think they've just been trained to do that. You can do that. I typically don't. And I've also prepared myself for like, I don't offer anything. So like I have a podcast. I don't have guests on my podcast. I've had some people ask me to be a guest on my podcast. I'm like, oh, I don't do that. But maybe I'll think of some other way that we can work together. And I just like end the call. I'm like, all right, so great talking to you. So I say that because I think people get worried about people pleasing or like how to end those calls. And I think it's just important to think through. But I've had like the benefit of doing this. And so many people fight me on this. And I'll talk about that in a second. But the benefit of these virtual coffees, like you do not understand the ripple effect. Let's say you only do one a week, okay? And you work 50 weeks a year. You cannot comprehend the ripple effect of 50 conversations like this. It will blow your mind. All of my speaking engagements have come from virtual coffees practically. Like speaking at big conferences, not just like going into law firms and doing a presentation, but like legitimate speaking gigs have come from doing virtual coffees. Every podcast I've been on has basically come from a virtual coffee. And you get all of these opportunities. It can also lead to clients, referrals, all of that stuff. Some of the people you do virtual coffees with will be like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. I want to work with you.
Yeah. Not to mention just your practice at articulating who you help, what you do, and just talking about your shit. Just that cannot be overstated. It's just such a great venue for you to talk. Like you're never going to see this person.
Yes.
If you completely blow it, it's all going to be okay. Just it's your opportunity.
I totally agree with that. And I have a client right now. I've been working with her. Like we've spent multiple sessions doing this. And it's interesting. Like even as her coach, like she's not seeing it land the same way that it landed when she did a virtual coffee with someone. And I've tried to refine like her tagline, basically, like what is your offer? Who do you help? And what problems do you help them solve? And she has a lot of different ones and it's like too vague and too ambiguous. It's just not great. And she just did a coffee with someone and he was like, I was really hoping for like something a lot shorter so I could like pass it on to this person I know.
Oh, how juicy is that? Yeah, right from the horse's mouth.
I know. So now she's figuring it out. She's like, I have to figure out a shorter way to say this. I've been saying that for a while now, but it's like when you hear it from someone else, like, and they just ask you questions that you haven't thought through. So it's like, well, what do you actually help people do if you're like a life coach? And you're like, ooh, I just said that I was like, I help people live better lives. And they're like, oh yeah, but like how? Like, tell me like, what do you work with people on? And you're like, oh shit. And you have to figure out all these answers. And then it helps you come up with different ways to articulate what you do. It's so valuable. And then that goes into your marketing and it can go on your website and just, it's so good.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I love it. Yes.
So that's meeting people. That's what you do with them when you meet them. And again, it's like you tell people what you do. If you can add value to the referral partners in some way, send them business. That's amazing. Business will come back to you. If you do have a podcast and you can have them on the podcast, amazing. You don't have to, but like just thinking about different ways that you can collaborate to get access to their audience. I'm always thinking about that. How can I get in front of those people? And then again,
I would think that there's really good organic opportunities that just come up on these chats, like how you can serve their people. If you're thinking of people that you serve the same ideal clients in different ways, offer to do something for their clients for free. Like what a better opportunity than, hey, how could I support them? And show a little goodwill. If this is an opportunity that you would want, like you have the stage, and that's a really great coffee chat for that person. It's like, cool. I love it. If somebody's going to come in and teach something to my people that I don't know about, like, let's go. Like this right now, very meta. Like, come on, let's go.
Let's go. I mean, that really is the basis of it. So if you're thinking about like, how do I meet people? How do I tell them what I do? How do I add value ahead of time? And how do I make offers? So thinking about that through your LinkedIn content, making sure you're telling people what you do. And I like to tell them through examples. I see people make this mistake on LinkedIn all the time. They're way too vague. People can't see themselves in your content. And then really adding value. So teaching them stuff for free ahead of time. And then same thing, adding value with the referral partners, and then making an offer at the end, whatever it is, whether it's to stay connected, whether it's for them to book this is whether you're working with direct clients or referral partners, but is it to book a consult? Is it to come to a webinar? Is it to sign up for your email list? Is it whatever? And then if it's referral partners, like what are the offers there? Connect with them, invite them. And then is there some back end offer after the end of the coffee chat? But they will blow your mind. It's amazing.
I love the thought of that, like one a week. You can for sure do one a week. If you're not full with clients, you can for sure do more than one a week. Don't stop. But even if you only did one a week, amazing.
So amazing. I'm so glad you said that, because no one told me this in the beginning of my business. I used to spend 8 hours a day on LinkedIn. I thought the beginning of my business was going to look like what the middle of my business actually looked like, where it was like, oh, I'm going to market some and I'm going to have clients. And I don't know why it seems very obvious now that the beginning of your business looks like 0 clients, but that hadn't dawned on me. And I think so many people, I'm sure you see this all the time, people are like, what do I do with my time? And no one told me this, but I came to this answer myself. I spent all of my time on LinkedIn. And so I'd wake up in the morning. I spent like 8 hours a day at least. I'd wake up in the morning. I would write a social media post. For me, that took about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. My posts are pretty long. And back in the day, LinkedIn had a really short word limit. So you would like write a long post and then you'd have to edit it and cut it like in half, which was challenging to be that concise. Now LinkedIn extended it. It's much longer. But I would write it and post it, and then I would engage with all of the people who were in my engagement pod. So they would share their links to their posts, and I would go and like and comment on all of their stuff. And then while I did that, we call it the golden hour on LinkedIn. The hour after you post is like the most important hour. And I would make sure I was online to respond to any comments I got and reply. That way I'm increasing the number of comments, which.
Okay. So I love this. So don't just like willy-nilly post it, like time the post when you're going to be able to be there, maybe doing some of those connection requests, doing the other stuff that you're going to be doing on LinkedIn afterwards so that you're there to respond. That's genius.
Correct. And we don't post and ghost.
Okay.
None of that. So people will post and then they like log off the platform and they go about their day. We do not do that. That is a very unsuccessful social media strategy. Okay. So you got
noted. Big post and ghost over here. So.
Yeah. Most people are. And I think the thing that is neat about you is that you've grown your business in such, I don't know if like unconventional or untraditional way is the right way to describe it, but like not the way that a lot of people grow it using social media, right? But you have success for the way that it has worked for you. So it's like, if posting and ghosting has worked for you because you've built your success a different way, then great. But what I see with people who do rely on social media, they post and ghost and their strategy is not working for them. And this whole virtual coffee chat came out of a conversation with people who are plateaued at a certain point in their business because their main strategy is social media and they post and ghost and don't have engagement and haven't created their community. So what you're thinking about, I understand it's a virtual platform, but you're cultivating a community. And like LinkedIn, for lack of a better term, especially during COVID, like when the whole world was shut down, LinkedIn was a fucking party. And people were there all day long, commenting on each other's stuff. Some of my closest friends I met during that time on LinkedIn, and like we all know each other and we are all close. But like, think about it. It makes sense.
You have to plug your book right now. Stop it. This is a fantastic opportunity. Go.
I never even think about it. So funny. I co-authored a book with 19 other lawyers called #Networked. And we wrote about building business and cultivating relationships during a global pandemic. And we all met each other. I joined a group of 50 women on LinkedIn, this engagement pod, and we all came together, built businesses, and really formed very rich relationships with one another through doing exactly what I'm saying. Like we were on LinkedIn. I started commenting on people's stuff organically, just without anyone telling me that I needed to do that. Actually, that's not true. Gary Vaynerchuk teaches this as well. He calls it his $1.80 strategy, where you leave your 2 cents on 90 pieces of content a day. So I knew to do this from him, but then I saw at work, this is how I got invited to an engagement pod, because people saw that I was a good citizen already, that I was active, I was publishing good content, I commented on other people's content, I didn't post and ghost, I was active on the platform, I wanted to like be a member of this space. And then I got invited to this community, and then I saw the benefits of engagement and of reciprocity, because how LinkedIn specifically works, and this is true for like all social media, but man, is it true for LinkedIn. If your post gets more engagement, the platform recognizes it as good content and it pushes it out to more people. So LinkedIn has phases. This is why we call it the golden hour and why you want the most comments within the first hour, because it tests your content to like 10% of your audience. And if it does well, then it pushes it out like the next hour to 30%. And then if it does well still, then it pushes it out to more. So if you're not getting any engagement because you're not giving any engagement, and engagement's a game of reciprocity, then very few members of your audience are seeing your stuff. And I think that's why people get so discouraged with social media. But it's like, it's actually in your control on whether or not people see your stuff. Be a good citizen and engage with people. So we ended up co-authoring this book about how we all use LinkedIn during the pandemic to grow our businesses and our own personal stories. It's really, really great for anyone who is interested in learning about how 20 different women did it during the pandemic. You can find the book on Amazon. All proceeds go to charity. And I mean, such a neat project, but like truly when I say you're cultivating a community, like most of the people that I've commented on and was in this pod with and all, like so many of them have hired me. They've worked with me for years. They worked with me one-on-one. Now they come to my group programs. When I travel, I see them. Like they shout me out. They share my content with other people. They refer people to me. They post and tag me when it's something, when they're like, oh, this is about time management. Olivia, this would be perfect for you. Chime in here. Like it really does feel like a party. It feels like you're at your, college or law school reunion or whatever with all of the people that you would socialize with. And it really is your duty or like your responsibility to cultivate that through spending time engaging with people. And it's like over time, what that builds into is just really beautiful. Not to be cheesy, but.
Okay. So now my mind is going. Unedited thoughts. Like I have hundreds and hundreds of people in the Profitable Nutritionist program that would probably want to do a pod and support each other engagement wise. Is that like a thing to do? And how do you do that? What's the structure of said pod? Where does the pod live?
Pod lives on LinkedIn.
It's just a chat. It's like a group chat.
It's a group chat.
Where you can't do it. You're like, this is the link to my thing I just posted.
Yeah.
In the chat. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is fascinating.
So LinkedIn has like groups. You don't do that. It's like clunky and doesn't make sense. So it's literally just a group chat. Now it maxes out at 50. So you'd have to start multiple ones.
We could do multiple pods. Genius. Done. Love it.
Yeah. Now there's some like, this is the unedited version. So like LinkedIn frowns on this.
Yeah.
And they say like, you're not allowed to do this. And like, hopefully LinkedIn higher ups don't listen to this podcast episode and track me down. But like there is a risk involved in doing it. I have found that the reward is significantly outweighed just because I get access. What you'll learn when you do this and these people from the pod engage with your content, their connections. So it's not just that LinkedIn pushes it out to more of your audience, LinkedIn pushes it out to their audience as well. So if you commented on something of mine because you thought it was good content, LinkedIn would show my post to more of your audience. So many of my clients have come from people in my network, in my pod and whatever, engaging with my stuff. And they're like, oh, I'm friends with Cameron. And Cameron commented on your thing and it popped up in my feed. And then I started following you. And it's like, yes, that's literally how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So
beautiful.
Yeah.
So we could do like a group chat in the private community for the program. Like we could even do it off LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Cause spying eyes and all that. We could do super secret.
Yeah.
And I mean, realistically, it's never going to be the same people that a percentage of the people in the pod are going to be on that day and see it in the amount of time. It's like going to be a different.
So our rule is if you drop a link that day, you have to comment on everyone who drops a link that day.
Okay.
Now that may be challenging with 300 people versus, 50 and not everyone posts every day. And right. So you've got to
I got to think about that. Okay. Call to action. People in the program, Well, first of all, if you're not in the program, what are you waiting for? Second
Get
of all,
in there.
if you're in the program, then we need to talk about this, figure it out. Someone's going to be ambitious and figure it out. I love it. And I love coloring outside the lines in this way. Like it just makes sense.
Yeah,
I love
me
it.
too. I also think, I mean, if we're being really unfiltered here, like what a great thing to offer within a program. Like when I tell you I've made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Let's listen to Olivia, shall we? It seems like a good idea.
I don't do it because I mean, I do think it's fun. I have fun doing it, but like, I don't just do it because I think it's fun. It is very profitable. It works. So to create that for people, like I joined a pod and, you know, one of the things you'll see is that we used to have 2 chats. I still have 2 chats to all of my pods. I have a thread, a post thread, and a chat thread. So if people want to ask questions about LinkedIn or like make small talk during the pandemic, our chat thread was like, we always describe it as a 24-hour coffee shop. If you were like going through a crisis or just freaking out or work sucked or whatever, like during the quarantine times, like the dark days of COVID, it was really like a beautiful support system. And we would exchange LinkedIn tips and secrets. Like, should you put your link in the post? Should you put the link in the comments? What happens
What's
when
the answer to that, by the way?
It's changed over time. So you used to really get penalized for putting it in a post. So it was always put it in the comments. Now the penalty is pretty much equal. So I include it in the post because I think there's friction in requiring people to go to the comments and look for it. Okay. So I put it in the post. But like answers to those questions of like, what about creator mode? Do I want creator mode? Do I not want creator mode? Do I want the follow button? Do I want the connect button? You want the connect button. People are just less inclined to follow than connect because one's reciprocal, one's not. So like all those questions, we had a place for it. So the post thread wouldn't get clunky with links and conversation and all of that. And in the original one that I joined, you know, unfortunately, like just arguments between like women in the group ended up turning it into more of a place of like drama and conflict. And I was like, I thought about it. I tolerated it for a while. I was like, I'm here. This serves my purpose. It serves my business. It's fine. And then eventually I was just like, this doesn't reflect my values anymore. I'm out. And I started my own. And I've started a couple. I think I've started 2. And like I've run them and built them, and some people drop off, some people join, you know, it ebbs and flows, but it really is such a beautiful thing to offer people. And I'm so glad that I finally got out of my own way and I did it myself. But to offer something like that to your people, like I've invited clients of mine into mine, friends of mine, and it's wild. They start to do it and maybe they're a little hesitant at first and then they give it a go. And like one of my clients, we talk about it all the time because she really doubts that she's in control of creating her results. And when she finally started doing these things, listening to me, she would send connection requests. Instead of sending 10, she'd send 100. And now she sees like people book a consult the same day.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Because they go to her profile, they're like, huh, who's this? And then they see it and it's optimized because you've listened to part 1 of this 2-part series. And then they go to your website and they just book the consult right there or sign up for your program or whatever. And now LinkedIn has a feature. I think it's only if it's in creator mode, but you can put a link in that like top tagline area on your profile and like label it, like label the hyperlink, book a consult or something like that, schedule a call. I think it's only if you're in creator mode, but totally valuable.
And per part 1, you do want to be in creator mode, by the way.
There you go. Boom.
Okay, I have to go to content before we wrap this. I have to ask you about what kind of content are you putting on there? So my suggestion is repurpose emails. My people are big on emails because they're following me, you know, and seeing that I've email. So I'm like, take your emails and like make a teaser of the whole email. If it's long with a call to action to get on your list, maybe you put the whole email, maybe you put parts of it. Like you get creative with what you do, but repurpose current and past stuff that you've already made first. In my opinion, that just makes the most sense. But I want to hear from you. Like, what kind of stuff are you putting on there?
Yeah. So really good. I think you got to think about the frequency that you're posting. So I think there's right answers to this and wrong answers to this. I think the wrong answer is anything less than 3 times a week.
Per week. Okay.
Yeah. I think you got to be showing up like it's a community. You got to be present in the community to be remembered in the community, right? So people have to be seeing you. So I think 3 to 5 times is a great frequency if you want to do it every day. Don't do it more than once a day. LinkedIn will cannibalize your content. So like if you post a second time, it will stop promoting and pushing out the first post within a 24-hour time period. So no more than once a day. So content that I like is number one, I don't love video on LinkedIn. I haven't had much success with it. It's gone through different phases. I think LinkedIn is very much a writing platform. I've just watched people do video with subtitles and it like doesn't really work and people don't have their volume on. It's not Instagram. It's not TikTok. It's not like that. So it's written content or like written content with a photo works well. I do a lot of that too. But I like thinking of it. So I break it down. Like you want to talk about a specific problem that your people face and then a specific solution and then make sure you've taught them something. Sometimes if you just teach them the solution, you've taught them something that's valuable, but I always want to think about what can I give them that they can implement right now without me and then make an offer. So it's like very specific problem. Here's what your problem is. Here's why it's a problem. Here's the solution to the problem. I taught you something valuable. If you have this problem, I can help you. Click here, do this, like call to action, right? So those really specific examples, I think are what resonate with people, like stories, paint people a picture, let them see themselves in what you're talking about. I know shorter posts do better on LinkedIn if you can keep them shorter. What else? You really want to be thinking about like what's above the fold, as they call it in like the newspaper industry, but like what's above that, see more. So what is your hook? I find a lot of people really struggle with that. That's something that I'm being really intentional about right now. Like I want the strongest hooks that I can have in order to get them to click see more and then take it from there. I don't like articles on LinkedIn. It takes people outside of their feed. I don't think people like that. So not a fan of that. This is a strategy that I use. I'm really big about your content being on brand because you need to tell people what you do and add value. And if you're talking about stuff that's not on brand for you, you're not telling people what you do or adding value, right? So it's confusing. But I do think that not every post needs to meet people, tell them what you do, add value, and make an offer. Every once in a while, I will do something really light that I think either really light or more personal that I think is going to do really well just to get more traction. So an example of this would be, I used to do Fun Friday posts. I've gone away from it because I just do content on brand right now. But I actually just did this last Friday or last Saturday, because you can do something really light. Like, what's your favorite legal movie? What's your favorite legal fictional character, right? Or fictional legal character? And every lawyer on LinkedIn wants to chime in and argue about whether it's, Lieutenant Caffey from A Few Good Men or Harvey Specter from Suits or, whoever. Like they all want to chime in on that. And then I go and I use that to meet people and I go connect with all these new people who have never commented on my stuff before. And because they engaged with one post, they're more likely to engage with other posts, and my posts are more likely to show up in their feed now. So I'll use that. It's kind of like popcorn or candy, basically.
Do you repurpose your stuff from Instagram on LinkedIn or vice versa? Or is it
vice versa? Everything starts on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But like LinkedIn's my core, like LinkedIn's my main place. So everything starts there. Mm-hmm. And I used to do that specifically because LinkedIn had a shorter word count. So it's like if it fit on LinkedIn, it would fit on Instagram. Now I actually have trouble with this because LinkedIn's word count's longer than Instagram's. So I normally have to cut down and edit, and it just makes it a little cumbersome. Like you get to play with the features and see what works. Like LinkedIn offers polls that you can do. I don't do a ton of that. I got started with LinkedIn when it was like just writing. So I write and give people valuable stuff. And normally I'm like painting a picture.
But I mean, the steps that you've already outlined is plenty to do. Like why add to it? Why?
No, plenty. specific problem, solution, teach them some shit, make an offer at the end if they have this problem. Like that's the format I teach. I also suggest for people, like if you have something that works for you, like don't worry about having 10 different formats. Like pick 3 different post formats. So like maybe you like list or just pick one format. Like I just gave this tip to my client. He's been struggling with getting started. I'm like, just do 3 bullet points every time you think about a topic. I'll add this for you. One of the co-authors of #Networked, her name's Sherry Bellitz. She's one of my great friends. We met through LinkedIn during quarantines. She is a trial consultant. Her content's awesome, very creative, and she can paint a picture like it's nobody's business. She's really incredible. And she makes these like themed song lyrics for trial consulting. Like she takes 80s rock songs and she's really inventive. It's cool. So you can do that. Like she picks the same things to do, like the same theme or the same idea and just changes it. But one of the things that her and I do that has been really powerful for me in the content creation space, we call it content brain. And we will just pick an item, anything around us, like any noun basically. And it's like, write a post about that and make it relatable to your business, right? So I could do that with your business. I could do it with my business. I could do it with Sherry's business. I could do it with a criminal defense attorney. I could do it with an insurance attorney, like a family law attorney. I could literally pick anything. So like snowstorm, like just that. And it's like, how would you write a post about that through the lens of a life coach for lawyers? I would talk about like being late for work because of the snowstorm. And now you're like late and panicked and frustrated with yourself, but also the weather, and you're in a terrible mood and the rest of your day is shitty. And I would talk all about like managing your mind. Now, Sherry might talk about you're a juror on this big case and you're stuck in a snowstorm, or like you have to leave your house, you work from home and you have to go schlep through the snowstorm to get to court. Does that impact how you view the case, how you deliberate, your attitude as a juror? And like just picking anything. So it's like, all right, for anyone who helps someone with like IBS, it's like
the snowstorm comes and your perfectly like curated dinner that you were going to cook healthy doesn't happen because you can't go to the grocery store and you call Domino's again.
Right? There you go.
There you go.
Totally. Or like you know, if you have like digestive issues, like you're stuck in a snowstorm and like you really have to use, right?
Panic.
Yeah. Panic. Right. And like someone who has those symptoms, they're reading that and they're like, oh my God, that happened to me, but it wasn't in a snowstorm. It was when I was like waiting for the subway and they just feel it in their body. When you're so specific like that, even if it's not the exact story, because people don't get specific because they're afraid to leave people out, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're so specific, people can see themselves in it.
Yeah, they'll make the story fit.
They do. And it's those stories, like when you really think about the content that resonates with you, for me, it's very specific stuff. Like there's this trademark lawyer. She always posts stories about companies fighting with each other over logos. And I remember them. Like I know that Home Chef and Grubhub have identical logos. And now when I think of trademark disputes, I think of her, right? Yeah. So it's those very specific stories that will resonate with your people. They'll see themselves and they'll remember it. So it's like it creates an emotion in them, and people are making emotional decisions when they're choosing to work with you in a good way, but like we want it to be an emotional experience for them. So you have to cultivate that through your content.
Yeah. I'm always thinking about, for nutritionists in particular, I mean, I think any type of health coach, probably any wellness practitioner, like we said earlier, you people don't really know what you do. We think that they do. We think it's very obvious. So like, of course, if you have insomnia, the first thing you do is you think about your blood sugar. And it's like, the whole world does not know that. Like nobody knows that. So I'm forever. You just
broke my brain. I'm like, fuck, that makes sense now.
Yes. We're like, of course. Well, yeah. And then it's like, nobody knows that. So I'm always saying, like, you have to say things like, no, yeah. And anyone you know that has insomnia, you have to send them to me. And then they're going to connect you and insomnia together.
Yes.
Forever.
Yes.
Like just these make it so simple to make those connections. So I love like kind of what you're saying there with your content on LinkedIn, like do that. But then you are leveraging this very easy way for people to share that with their network. Like
Yes.
even if they're not trying to, LinkedIn's probably going to do it for them. So
Correct.
wonderful.
Yeah, which is amazing. The other thing, and I think this is especially true for your people, is I hear from people who aren't lawyers who I work with when they think about going on LinkedIn, or I hear it from other entrepreneur friends of mine, other coaches that I know. They have a lot of mind drama of like, LinkedIn is not the platform for me. Like, I don't belong on LinkedIn. I'm not a professional. I am not talking about professional business stuff. I don't belong there. And it's like, that is not the CEO's decision making, right? Like the CEO
this is so funny. My husband said this to me. He's like, I don't get why you're on LinkedIn. Like, you don't want a corporate job. I was like, what? He's like, isn't that just for like, so that you get like headhunters find you?
right?
Yeah. So this is a very recent conversation I had. I'm like, oh, you're so cute. Look at you.
I just had this conversation with, I don't know if you know her, Janae.
Yeah.
I'm begging her. I'm doing a call with her like in a couple next week. I'm like, you have to be on LinkedIn. For anyone who's listening, she is a brilliant college admissions coach for students who want to get into Ivy League schools. And you know who doesn't pay her? The students. Do you know who does pay her? The parents. Do you know where they are? LinkedIn.
And they want to see that she is legit before they write that check. Genius.
For sure. And like the people on LinkedIn are the ones who care about where their kids go to school, right?
Yeah.
But not everyone does. And like, maybe I'm not trying to generalize here. So like, no one come at me for this, but like,
come at her. We generalize all the day. Do it.
But those people are going to care, right? Yes. Like where their kids go to school, and they probably don't have time or the resources or the knowledge to help their kids themselves. So it's like, click the easy button, hire Janae. She's amazing, brilliant. And I'm just like, you're so good. You have to be there. So I think the question is like, number one, are your people there? And if your people are there, then you should be there. Like that's an easy decision right there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, for anyone listening to this, your people are there, and people that can refer their people to you are there for sure.
Yeah. Agreed. And then the other thing that I focus on is you have to train your brain what to look for. One of my friends used to do this, and she really sabotaged her business because she would get on LinkedIn and start making money, and then she'd psych herself out, totally success intolerance, but she'd psych herself out and be like, she was a relationship coach. And she was like, my stuff's not professional. It doesn't belong on LinkedIn. And people would like comment on some of her posts and be like, take this to Facebook. And then it'd like just feed into the whole mind drama, right?
Yeah.
And then she'd quit, and then she'd stop making money because, as we both talked about, LinkedIn is highly profitable. And she'd go to different platforms where her return on her time spent there wasn't nearly as great as what she was getting on LinkedIn. And then she'd freak out and go through some months of really low income or no income. And then she'd come back to LinkedIn, and she just kept going through that pattern. And she would always look for all of like the most professional posts. And I gave her this guidance where I was like, look, there's plenty of quote unquote unprofessional ones. Like where someone's talking about like, I did a post, my cat died. Like, I have no problem doing that. It was the love of my life. So I wanted the whole universe to know about it. And like also to warm me up and like let people in on a personal part of my life, right? Like I'm not trying to game or be weird about that, but like also it's like a marketing practice of like, I'm letting people in on things in my life that are going on, celebrations, sad moments, all of it. So they feel like they know me. And if you look for those examples, people will talk about, you know, parents dying of cancer or suffering from cancer or Alzheimer's, or, you know, their kids and cooking dinner on Sunday nights and health issues or mental health or whatever. Like you'll find examples of whatever it is that you're looking for. So if you're looking for, it's only professional, the stuff I'm talking about isn't welcome here, you're only going to see that. But if you force yourself to look for examples of all this other stuff, this diversity of ideas is welcome here, you'll find that.
Yeah. It's almost like our brains will like prove us true.
It's like almost like that.
It's almost like our thoughts create our results or something.
Almost
it's the
like
weirdest thing. Crazy. This is so good. Okay. So, like I said in the beginning, I mean, I'm just going to do a very shameless commercial for Olivia and her brain again, but like selfishly for me, because I captured her for over 6 hours in the consult intensive. So if you love what you're hearing here and you're like, this is the exact actionable what to do and what not to do that I need in my business life, come in the Profitable Nutritionist program. You get a lot more Olivia and you'll learn exactly how to do a high converting consult, which she is a genius at executing, doing, and explaining. And I love it so much. So that is how you find her in my world. theprofitablenutritionist.com/join. Enrollment is opening September 14th to the 20th. Get in there. We want to have you. There's some sort of a pod brewing here. We don't know what that's all about yet, but something is happening with the LinkedIn pod. It's going to be great. So that's how they find me. But how do they find you? And how do we all connect on LinkedIn? Where are you? Tell everyone how to find you.
Yeah,
and who you work
so I'm on LinkedIn.
This just in, you can find her there.
So I'm under my name, Olivia Vizachero. So you can go and connect with me there. I'm also on Instagram. Those are my two platforms of choice. On Instagram, my handle is The Less Stressed Lawyer. I also have a podcast called The Less Stressed Lawyer Podcast. And frankly, if you're a human with a brain, it's probably relevant to you. So if you like me and you like learning from me and you like my flowcharty brain, then
so good.
You'll probably love my podcast. I also teach monthly webinars. If you go to lessstressedsessions.com/sign up, you will find my whole year's worth of virtual events that you can sign up for and attend. And there are trainings on all the things.
I didn't even know about that offer. Amazing.
They're my webinars. Because I have a flowcharty brain, my webinars are amazing.
You guys, she teaches just, as you can see, just so well. I love it. Okay, so we will have all of that linked up in show notes for this episode, obviously. This is just amazing. I am going to have, so like I said, I am not personally doing all of the LinkedIn now. I mean, I'm obviously in the mix on the setup and what are we doing and how are we doing it and what do we want it to look like? But I'm doing this thing called delegating, which is a painful and liberating experience all at once. It's like this really freedom-inducing torture, but it's like, how do you have someone else do things instead of you do them? I'm learning.
That's the chocolate pit on the Candyland board.
It is. It
Yes.
It totally is. It totally is. So I'm going to have Carla listen to this. Obviously, we're going to have a lengthy meeting about this strategy and discussion. And then I'm going to try to figure out, okay, so how do I train someone to do this like me? Because it's not going to be me most of the time. So this is like a new puzzle that I'm figuring out too. And I'm happy to come back and report on that as we're doing it too. But you've given me so many good ideas. I love this so much. Everyone's going to love it. Thank you for spending time with us today, as always.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.